Hi, my name is Willie Wyman Pleasant. I'm an author, poet, and your host. Welcome to Willie's Web, where everyone has a story. And today on my show, we're going to talk about money, how to save the money, how to save it, keep it. I have well-known authors on my show. I have a well-known poet, and I have a famous comedian. So you don't want to go anywhere. You want to stay right there. Right now, it will be Willie's Moment. And in Willie's Moment, I have a special guest that I flew in from Virginia. He's gonna tell you about your financial issues. So my first special guest he's a former director for Informational System Security Audit with the Human Service Department in Washington, D.C. He's a former director, I want to mind you. He's retired. So most of us can't retire. We have to still work. Like me? Oh, okay. So thank you, Edward Meyers. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for the invite. I appreciate the invite. I know your show tends to be for people of various talents. You know, you have authors, you have writers, you have poets. So when you extended the invite, I was like, ooh, I don't do any of that. So what should I do? And so what I wanted to talk about was money. Everyone likes money.
Right.
All right, but let me tell you a little bit about myself first.
Okay.
You know, your intro stated that I was a former director of Information System Security Audits at the Department of Health and Human Services. That's correct. And so you may say, well, what's the link between Information System Security Audits and money?
Right.
Okay. Well, the deal is I'm an auditor. Okay, not an IRS auditor, because most people, when you say auditor, they think IRS.
That's right.
I'm not an IRS auditor. Prior to going into information system securities, I did financial audits. And the Department of Health and Human Services is responsible for reviews done at state and local governments, colleges and universities, educational programs, a wide host of things. Most people know what Health and Human Services is about. Medicare, Medicaid, the whole nine. So during that time period of my career, I did a fair amount of audits in that area, or was exposed to those audits, one or the other, or assisted in them. So when it got to pensions, that was really interesting because pensions typically were conducted at state and local governments. And what we found was that they were typically underfunded for some reason or another. Now, what that means is there's two types of pensions. There's a pension that is called a defined benefit pension, which it's like the holy grail of pensions, if you will. That's the one you want.
Right.
And in the early days of, say, the early 1970s, 1980s, those were the pensions that were most prevalent.
Right.
But as time went on, those pensions you start to see less and less of those.
Right.
So what happened was, I said, how can I take that and make that a conversation that would be helpful to maybe your listening audience?
Right.
And my big focus is with children, you know, youngsters, you know, the millenniums, you know, the Generation Xers. You know, I have a huge interest and concern in where they are going down the road.
Right.
And
they're living at our house.
they're living at our homes, right. Well, you know, the deal with children is like, as a parent, the first thing you want to hear a child says is, I have a job.
Right.
The next thing you want to hear, I have a job with benefits. And my concern is a lot of kids have jobs with no benefits.
Right.
And that's not a death sentence. That's nothing to be all upset about. But the question is, if you don't have a job with benefit, then how do you protect yourself down the road?
Right.
Okay, so before we get much further in this, I got a question for you. In fact, I have two questions for you. First question. When you retire, just fill in the blanks. When you retire, you want to do what?
I want to retire and stop working.
Okay, all right, that's what you want to do.
That's what I want to do.
Okay, second question. You've worked 45 years, 45 years. And now you find that your pension is not what it's supposed to be.
Right.
Now what do you do?
I still work.
You still work.
Because I can't quit.
You can't quit.
And I think that's most of America finding themselves. That's why people still at these jobs 70 and 65 and 70 years old.
Right.
Now, and I almost want to say they still want to work,
Correct.
but that's not true.
True. No, you don't want to. If you put in 45 years, you start working at age 20, and you've put in 45, some people 50 years, and you're looking at 65, 70 years old, there's some things you want to do. Mm-hmm. There are studies that say that people, once they retire, mm-hmm. they find out what they really want to do. You know, I look at you. Mm-hmm. You know, you've retired, you were in accounting, and now you're a great author. Mm-hmm. You know, you're doing stuff that you really want to do, and that's the time you want to be able to relax, exhale, and go.
Right.
But how situations are set at the employment situation right now for particularly youngsters, mm-hmm. it's a little hard, it's a little difficult to do for right. whatever reason. One reason, there's a lot of jobs now that are temp jobs,
right.
part-time jobs,
right.
no benefits.
No benefits.
None whatsoever. And so how do you handle that? You know, I had a conversation with a family member this afternoon, you know, hard-working young man. He's got 3.5 jobs. You know, I think he's Jamaican, you
yeah.
know, but 3.5 jobs. And so I asked him, I said, that's great. He's doing wonderful things for himself and his family. I said, okay, what are you going to do when you turn 70? What are you going to do when you turn 65? He says, well, I'm trying to make sure I stack up the dollars. And I says, you can't stack up enough. I have a philosophy that says you can't work your way to financial security. Mm-hmm. Simply can't do it. You can invest your way to financial security, mm-hmm. but you can't work your way. If you're working a 9 to 5 or a 5 to 5, from can't to can't, as they used to say, from can't see in the morning till can't see at night, you know, you can't do it. You can't right. make enough money doing it. But what you can do is you can find ways to pool your monies with other people's money, OPM, right. so to speak.
Right.
All right, and one way to do that is by investing in some sort of an index fund, mm-hmm. mutual funds, or preferably, my favorite, I should say, is a Roth IRA, mm-hmm. okay? Because a Roth IRA is like free money. Mm-hmm. You know, you take your cash and
this is after tax money.
This is after tax money. You've earned your money through some. In fact, you can only contribute to a Roth IRA from money you received as compensation.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're at home and you have a nice allowance, you can't do it.
Right.
It has to be compensated money.
Right.
But again, what you do is you go ahead and you make that contribution. And you can start at whatever age and just let that money build. Mm-hmm. The average return on a Roth IRA over the last 40 years has been about, for moderate risk, mm-hmm. is about 9%. Mm-hmm. It's been as high as 32% mm-hmm. rate of return. And, you know, there's been some losses. I mean, there's sometimes been some loss. But the average over a 40-year period mm-hmm. is a 9% gain. You can't get that at a bank now. What do you get, 1%? You know,
if that.
You simply can't get that. So that's the discussion I want to have with you. Right. Is like, and hopefully this would be the first of several kinds of discussions. I know you have a large show today, mm-hmm. and I don't want to eat up too much time. Mm-hmm. So let's sort of get into it.
Okay.
All right, so I have a couple of takeaways that I hope people will get from this conversation.
Okay.
All right, first takeaway is there's a term called the time value of money. Mm-hmm. That's a real term, a real concept. Mm-hmm. That's the first takeaway I want. Second takeaway is the sooner you start, the better. Okay, and I'll run through just some quick numbers there. Mm-hmm. Third takeaway is that the country is better when young people are doing well. Mm-hmm. You know, it's better for everybody.
Everybody.
When young folks are doing well and they feel stable and secure in mm-hmm. their own environment. The fourth takeaway is that no amount of money is too small to start. You can start with anything. All you need is the courage to start. That's all you got to have. And then finally, create your own pension. set up your own pension plan, defined benefit plan. All right, so let's sort of run through this real quickly. Time value of money, really, what is that? We make that decision every day we spend money. We choose to spend money or save money, but we make a decision about the time value of money. There's an old expression, well, time is money, time is money. You're absolutely right, time is money. If I decided to buy a top-of-the-line Mercedes for $75,000 to get me from point A to B, or a top-of-the-line Honda to get me from here, I've just saved $30,000.
Right. I
can take that $30,000 and put it somewhere else.
And invest.
Yeah. All right, so saving, and over time, that $30,000 becomes something. And so you have to assume that you don't know everything, and the one thing you don't know is how fast money can grow. You really don't know it until you see it.
Right.
So let me give you an example. When I said the sooner you start, the better. Here's a quick example. This chart, which you can't see, so you're going to have to trust me that I'm reading what's here, okay, and I'm not hyping this, okay. And of course I can't see it, so I'm going to have to take this off. This chart is called the future value of an annuity. Okay, the website that you can get this from, you can get it from anywhere, but this particular website is the principlesofaccounting.com. Okay, principlesofaccounting.com.
All right.
All right. What this shows is it has the number of years or periods down the left-hand column. Across the top, it has your desired rate of return or your desired interest for some investment that you have. Because when you put your money somewhere, you want it to do something.
You want it to grow.
Right. So they have it from 0.25%, which we probably get at a bank now. So 1/4%, and they have it as high as 12% on this chart.
Right.
Okay, but as I said, in actuality, many of the index funds now are giving you more than that.
Right.
Okay. So let's just take a simple one. Let's say a 9% rate of return. Okay. So this is an annuity at the beginning. So at the beginning of the year, January 1, $1 goes down. I want a 10% return, a 9% return. At the end of the year, in December, I got $1.09. Woohoo! $1.09. Second year, next January, I put another $1 in, $2. And so now I got $2.09 to start, $2.09, and then I earn the interest.
Right.
All right. So this goes on for 40 years. At the end of the 40th year, just doing that $1 for 40 years is now worth $213. Okay, but that's $1.
Right. That's
right.
just
$1. So do the math.
Right.
Let's say you're able to put in $1,000 a year.
Right.
So now that's $213,000.
Right.
Okay, and you do the math. So if it's $5,000 you can do, you got $1 million after 40 years.
Wow.
And so it doesn't matter.
Why didn't somebody tell me this when I was working? Okay. I could be like, I don't know, on a beach somewhere.
Yeah, you could be at a beach somewhere. Exactly. And I think that's why it's important for people to know this and hear this. And why sooner is better? With that same scenario, if you started at age 45 and said, well, I'm going to do it for 20 years. After 20 years, the value would only be, the value of that $1 would be $43.
Multiply that times.
But it's only $43.
Right.
But if you do it for 40 years, it's $213.
Right.
All right. So you can see the time value of money concept kicking into play. As the years go by, you start building huge amounts of funds.
Right.
Okay.
But even with the simplest thing, and I learned when I was working that we used to have a Christmas savings club.
Right.
And I used to save like $5, $10, say $10 a year, $10 a week.
Right.
And at the end of the year, you almost have what, 500, is it 500?
If it's $10 a week,
yeah.
$500.
Yeah, $500. Well, then there was a lot. But what kids don't realize, they want to spend the whole $500 on Christmas gifts, when they really should take half of that and put that away and don't look at it.
Okay.
And that would be another way of doing it.
I agree with you.
Okay.
And that's why I say no amount of money is too small to start, because
Right.
even if you walk into either your bank or a brokerage firm, whatever financial institution you use, if you walk in and it says, well, I have $50, and they says, well, we can't start with 50. They may not be able to, but you can.
Right.
You can say, okay, just put this $50 in this account. Each week, I'm going to put another 25 or another 50 or whatever, another 100. And come January 1, I want you to move all of this over into a Roth IRA for me.
Right.
So you can get started even if there's some sort of a limit to that's imposed by the financial institution when you can get started.
Right.
So that's good. So that's the another takeaway.
Right.
The next takeaway is, like I said, the country benefits when kids are better.
No, my house benefit when kids are better.
Your house benefit.
Because they're not in my house anymore.
Right. And I'm glad you said house. I'm glad you said house because I just heard the results of a study and heard several interviews on a rival radio station in Washington, D.C., and they were talking about kids coming out of school so heavily burdened with debt that they don't want to buy a home. It's like they're saying, I've got a couple $100,000 worth of school debts. I got to get that top of the line Mercedes, so I got a car note. I don't want a mortgage.
Right.
And that's a shame because you want them buying that starter home because the person who they buy the starter home from wants to buy your home,
right.
And then you can take your money and go retire on the beach.
Right,
you know, and I mean, so the country's better when youngsters are investing.
It's a win-win.
It's a big win-win all over. So if they can be more comfortable with where they are and where they think they're going, then those of us who bought homes 30 years ago, 40 years ago, dirt cheap, but it didn't seem that way. You know, it's amazing.
It's
what now
amazing.
seems cheap.
Yes.
But dirt cheap 40 years ago, now we want to reap the rewards from that. We want to say, okay, let's cash in and go wherever you want to go. But you want somebody to be able to step up and buy that house from you.
Right.
And you can't do that unless you have youngsters participating. It's almost like the healthcare law.
Right.
You know, the whole Affordable Care Act is based on young, healthy adults
Contributing that money.
Buying in.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the next item, the next takeaway, is this whole concept of a defined benefit pension. Like I said, and if you don't have one through your employer, see if you can visually see this.
What they have done is they have decided that the companies have figured out how not to pay that.
Well,
so you're saying to the kids is you need to not wait. You know, don't think that you got extra money going on. Take that extra money because you're saying that we got one more minute left. But we're saying that they need to take that extra money and invest it.
In themselves.
Don't wait for the employee to invest it because
the employer, right. Do that yourself.
May not get that chance.
Right. Well, it's expensive for employers to maintain defined benefits plans because they tell you right up front when you first start, if you do X, Y, Z, these are the things you will have.
Right.
And so those plans have been on a big decline for the last 20 years.
Right.
But you as an individual, you can create something similar to it for yourself. By just using some sort of a strategy, an investment strategy to sort of keep you going.
Keep you going.
Right.
Wow. That was wonderful.
Okay.
Sorry we don't have any more time to talk about that.
Promise me you're going to do this again.
We're going to do it again. I promise to do a whole show on finance. At least do one show on finance.
And I can bring some people with me?
You can bring some people with you because I think this is so important that we continue this because we have to get those kids out of the house. At least I don't know about you guys, but I'm like glad my son's out of the house.
All right, that works.
So we're going to go to a PSA and we will be right back.